Hello, it's Angie. One of the most common messages I receive from viewers is surprisingly simple. People say, why is pension tax so complicated? And honestly, I completely understand why so many retirees feel overwhelmed. Because for most of working life, many people experience tax in a fairly straightforward way. You go to work, you receive wages, PAYE handles deductions, and your employer manages much of the process automatically. But retirement often changes everything. Suddenly, income starts arriving from multiple places, and that is where confusion begins. Because in modern retirement, people may simultaneously receive the state pension, one or two workplace pensions, private pensions, drawdown withdrawals, part-time earnings, savings interest, investment income, or lump sums. And each one can interact differently with the tax system, which means retirement income is often no longer one employee, one payslip. Instead, it becomes a puzzle made up of multiple moving parts. Here's a table to show you the working life traditional PAYE system that we were used to before we retired, with modern retirement, the layered system. And I think honestly, this is one of the biggest reasons retirement suddenly feels confusing to so many people. Because during working life, tax often feels largely invisible. Your employer manages most of it automatically, but retirement changes the structure completely. And many people suddenly go from one employer, one payslip, to managing several different income streams, all interacting together at the same time. I think we need to start with one of the biggest misunderstandings of all. Many people believe the state pension is tax-free, but technically it isn't. The state pension is taxable income. The reason many people historically paid little or no tax on it was because their total income remained below taxable levels overall. But the pension itself is still classed as taxable income. And already many viewers suddenly say, I never realised that. Now, here is where things become even more complicated. Unlike many workplace pensions, the state pension is usually paid without tax deducted first. So, HMRC often collects any tax due elsewhere instead, usually through another pension, employment income, or adjusted tax codes. And that is why many retirees suddenly encounter unusual PAYE codes, reduced allowances, BR codes, K codes, or emergency tax situations, often without fully understanding why. Let's have a look at a real-life example with Jean's retirement income. Jean is 68 and she has the full new state pension and one small workplace pension. That is all. Quite a simple retirement arrangement by modern standards. And you'll see in the table, at first glance, it looks simple, but already something important is happening because Jean's state pension is taxable income. But as I said, tax is not usually deducted directly from it first. So HMRC often adjusts the tax code on Jean's workplace pension instead. And emotionally, this is where confusion often begins, because Jean suddenly notices more tax coming off the workplace pension, a different PAYE code, or reduced allowances, and naturally she thinks, why is my pension being taxed differently now? When in reality, HMRC is trying to collect tax across the combined income picture. And already retirement starts feeling more administratively complicated than expected. And emotionally, this is extremely important because retirement is supposed to feel calmer, simpler, more stable. But instead, many people suddenly feel uncertain and anxious and frightened of making mistakes, especially when official letters arrive, tax codes change, or unexpected tax deductions appear. Tell me if that isn't the case. Okay, let's have a look at the reality of modern flexible retirement. Another reason pension tax becomes complicated is because retirement itself has changed enormously over the years. Historically, many people stopped work, they received one pension, and they lived relatively straightforward financial lives. But modern retirement is far more flexible. People now phase retirement gradually or work part-time. They may use flexible drawdown, take irregular lump sums, move money between products, or combine pensions and actively manage income levels. And while flexibility can be useful, it also creates complexity because the tax system must constantly interpret what type of income is being taken, when it is being taken, and how it should be taxed. Look at this on-screen table of past compared to present systems. Now, many retirees expected stability, as I said, simplicity and predictable income when they retired. Instead, modern retirement can sometimes feel like managing a constant moving financial system. And for ordinary people simply wanting peace of mind, that can feel exhausting. Then there's the shock of emergency tax on drawdowns. And it's something we probably need to talk about because it catches many people out. Pension withdrawals are not always taxed in the same way emotionally that people think about them. Many retirees think, I'm only taking my savings, which feels perfectly logical. But HMRC may simultaneously view part of that withdrawal as taxable income entering PAYE. And this is why people often become shocked during their first taxable pension withdrawal, because emergency tax can suddenly appear. Not necessarily because anything is wrong, but because the system temporarily assumes that withdrawal pattern may continue. And viewers often say, but I only took one payment. Let's look at another real-life scenario with a couple, David and Sandra's layered setup. Now, David is 71 and Sandra is 69. Between them, they receive 2 state pensions, 2 workplace pensions, occasional drawdown withdrawals, savings interest, ISA income, and David still does part-time consultancy work. Look at this table, the income source on the left-hand side and how the tax system handles it. And just look at how quickly complexity builds, because already we potentially have multiple tax codes, multiple PAYE systems, changing annual income estimates, pension withdrawal taxation, savings allowance calculations, and later HMRC adjustments. And it's no wonder why many retirees feel overwhelmed. And that's not because they are careless, not because they are unintelligent, but because retirement taxation has gradually evolved into a layered system of interacting income sources. And most people were never taught how all these systems work together. Isn't that the case? Were you ever taught how it all worked and what was going to happen when you retired? I wasn't. Now, let me show you how quickly complexity builds. Imagine somebody receives a state pension, a small workplace pension, occasional drawdown withdrawals, savings interest, and some part-time income. Already, we potentially have PAYE interactions, multiple tax codes, savings allowances, pension withdrawal taxation, and changing annual income estimates. And for many ordinary retirees, that becomes incredibly difficult to monitor confidently. Another major problem is timing, because taxation does not always happen instantly and perfectly in real time. Sometimes providers use temporary codes. HMRC later adjusts estimates. Refunds occur later on, or underpayments appear afterwards. So people often feel that numbers constantly move around, and psychologically that can feel very unsettling, especially for retirees trying carefully to budget. And here is a list for you above to list all the reasons why it can feel confusing. We have state pension is taxable but completely untaxed at source. We have different pension providers using conflicting tax codes at the same time. We have automatic emergency tax applied by HMRC to the first single drawdown withdrawal. We have HMRC PAYE estimates constantly adjusting throughout the year. Then there's correction letters or unexpected calculations arriving months later. Complex savings allowance rules interacting with changing income bands. Multiple distinct income streams overlapping in the same month. And total income shifting dynamically at different stages of retirement. And honestly, when you look at all of this together, it becomes much easier to understand why so many careful retirees say, I just don't fully understand what is happening anymore. Because modern retirement tax is no longer simple arithmetic. It is now a constantly adjusting interaction between multiple systems operating at the same time. I want to say something important here. Most pensioners are not financially irresponsible. In fact, many retirees are extraordinarily careful. The problem is often not carelessness. The problem is the complexity itself, because the rules surrounding pensions, allowances, tax codes, withdrawals, and income interactions have gradually become extremely layered over time. And there is another emotional layer too, fear. Many people become frightened of taking too much, paying unnecessary tax, triggering HMRC letters, or making irreversible mistakes. Some viewers become so anxious they delay making pension decisions altogether. How many will hold their hands up to say that? And who can blame them sometimes? And that is one reason financial understanding matters so much in retirement. It's not to create fear, but to reduce it. Here are 4 practical tips to take control. So what practical things actually help? Number 1, understand all income sources together. Many people look at pensions separately, savings separately, and work separately, but HMRC often looks at total taxable income combined. That single mindset shift helps enormously. Number 2, check tax codes carefully, especially after retirement, after pension withdrawals, or after changing income sources. Small coding problems can sometimes create surprisingly confusing outcomes, you know. And number 3, expect the first year of retirement to feel the messiest. It's very common because income sources change. PAYE adjusts. Providers communicate with HMRC. Tax estimates move around. For many people, things later settle much more smoothly. So, number 4, do not panic immediately over unexpected tax. Sometimes temporary tax deductions, emergency tax, or adjustments later correct themselves. So always investigate calmly first. I think this is what most retirees actually want. Here's the table, which I hope spells that out. And honestly, this is not an unreasonable expectation after decades of work and contribution, because retirement should feel more peaceful emotionally and not more administratively complicated. And finally, I think many pensioners simply want one thing: clarity, not loopholes, not tricks, not complexity, just the ability to understand what is happening, why it is happening, and what actions are sensible. And that's completely reasonable, because retirement shouldn't feel like navigating an advanced tax puzzle alone. If you found this helpful, please consider subscribing, and I'd genuinely like to know what part of pension tax do you find most confusing. Do remember my disclaimer that I've put above. I'm Angie, and I'll see you all again very soon. Do take care. Bye for now.